I'll be talking about critical reading and literature review. And people like us, professional people like us, have no alternative but taking recourse to books and reading. Although recently I was reading one of the interesting texts by a very respected scholar in the history of printing, Chittoranjan Bandhopadhyay. Many of you might have read his studies, read his works, where he was rather sarcastically uh, uh, telling us that probably reading has no place, reading serves nothing, or something like that. But still, in spite of such a deluge of information through various sources, still physical reading has something to say. And in fact, it characterizes the humanity from the very beginning. So, without wasting much time, let me uh, directly come to the point and share my slide with you, and intermittently to interject with some of the uh, points that I would like to clarify. What is happening here? Selected tab. Sorry. Okay. Just a minute. Could you see it? Is it all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, what I was talking about, this is not my, just a minute. সুমন, ক্লাসে আছে, কিছু বলবে? হ্যাঁ, আমি ওটা সার্কুলেশন মিটিং এ দিয়েছি, ওটা পাঠিয়ে দাও। না, এ ছাড়া তো পাঠাতে পারবে না, রেজুলেশনের কপি ছাড়া পাঠানো যাবে না। তাহলে এটা পাঠিয়ে দাও, পাঠিয়ে দিলে যদি কাজ হয় দেখো, পাঠিয়ে দাও, ওটা সাবমিট করে দাও। ঠিক আছে, অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্টটা সাবমিট করে দাও, আগেরবার যেভাবে করেছিল কপি রেখে। ঠিক আছে, সরি ফর দ্য ইন্টারাপশন। So, man that I was talking about is a reading species, Homo legens. And from the very beginning of human history, a man is, quote unquote, reading something to become man. And the importance of such a reading practice, which the human adopted. Okay, I think there is some, just a minute, one second. Just a minute. Tower maybe, I'm just putting up the, okay. Okay. So, from the very beginning, while talking about the importance of book, one of the first readers in the history of reading, the Egyptians, we come across a text by a Egyptian scribe written in hieroglyphics that it is a book which makes him remember in the mouth of the speaker who reads you. So this is the immortal witness. Books or such writing scripts serve to be the immortal witness to humanity. And it was about 1300 years BC.
স্যার
It,
সরি,
it,
প্রেজেন্টেশনটা শেয়ার করুন স্যার, ওটা দেখাচ্ছে না।
শেয়ার হচ্ছে না?
না,
সরি, just a minute. Okay, one second. Is it coming again? Actually, what happens, the tower strength was low, for which I switched off the camera.
নো ইস্যু স্যার।
Is it now visible?
আপনার ডেস্কটপ এটা দেখাচ্ছে, কিন্তু পিপিটিটা এখনো খোলেনি।
I think
হ্যাঁ,
it should-
এবার এসছে।
Okay.
ঠিক আছে।
Okay. I think it is now visible. Is it all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, and for them, initially, it was to read, to mean recite. And you will keep in mind, keep a note of the particular word, homo legens, about which I shall be elaborating particularly from etymological points of view. That this homo legen, the legere, the term from which the word read came in English, is an indicative of the kind of multiple or multifarious importance which the reading has for the humanity. Hello. No. পরে আমি কথা বলছি। Now coming to reading, it is a kind of I was talking about. Still, the primacy of reading for the professionals is still immanent, and in contrast to writing, the reading prioritizes meaning, whereas writing prioritizes sound. Now, coming to the facts and figures for a country like United States of America, where we come across 99% of literacy. There, people in the age group of 15 to 44 pass only 10 minutes or less in a day in reading books. And what they are doing now, they're not watching television, they're switching over to some social media. And it is the study also reveals that 60% of them have switched off most of their time to social media. And it is also another important point that as 27% of the adult American are not reading any books. So in spite of that, we have certain very we should be take pride in the matter that India tops the list of people, percentage of people who read book. An average 10 hours in a week they spend in reading book. And then comes Thailand, next China, and so on, whereas US ranks 23rd. And in case of reading, in the physical process of reading, we should keep in mind certain things, that our average reading speed is 250 to 300, and the average speed of reading one page. And I think you can see these data over the screen. But the point is that you may ask that why you are giving these facts and figures of America. This is just an indicator, and you can play, since we don't have any study on India in this scale, or so these data can give a comparative understanding of where you or where we stand with regard to the reading. But what we read, all are not comprehended at a time, but a kind of reading habit may increase our power of reading as well as power of critical reading. And it has obvious effects, since it was also the study revealed that the fact that it helped us to emotional development. At the same time, it increases our decision making ability. So basically, the reading is serving two major purpose. One is practical purpose, and another is of something of intangible kind of thing, mental psychological development. So the reading is immensely important. Now coming to the uh, reading regimes, or the regimes of communication that developed over the history of humankind, that there are basically four major communication regimes through which humanity has passed. Initially, it started with speech or orality, the very beginning, and we know in our country the very early Vedic period, or we know, have the idea of Shruti, and many of the tribal peoples or indigenous people don't have any written script or tradition of writing. Therefore, they are still having a kind of orality regime in their communication domain. But gradually, after the orality, came up the writing, then the printing and digital. And except the during the since the regime of orality, the through digital, reading is of prime importance, but reading in its wider sense. And what this wider sense mean? This means it is the decipherment of text. So reading leads to the decipherments of text. Then how old reading is? The question you may ask. One answer we receive from Fisher, who wrote the history of reading, that the Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens were the first readers. And what is the age of Neanderthals? It is somehow 1,50,000 years. Some also suggest it is further backward in time. But still, for the last 2 lakhs of years, reading was prevalent, or reading originated, as Fisher suggests. But taking this sense of reading, what Fisher suggests, I beg to differ from his argument, and that in the sense of reading which Fisher used, the humanity from the very beginning had the ability to read, and this reading gave an evolutionary advantage to the humanity, because by reading the codes, the suggestions, the symbols, man could communicate with each other, form group, and also did interesting inventions and innovations. For example, if we take the case of making instruments, making tools, stone tools, the cognitive archaeologists suggest that the making of stone tools of different varieties and of different intricacies needed a kind of communication among them, and also the reading of the messages one was encoding one and in their activities, or in their uh, in the object. So reading is from the very beginning of humanity is an important feature. So and what is text? This text is what they actually read. They read the text, and text is a kind of thing which can be deciphered by any human agency. So it may be a book, maybe a design, maybe a sculpture or a painting. But in originality, it is an understanding of weave. The Latin root indicates that it is the it is a weaving. And weaving has also closeness with the understanding of culture and the formation of meaning. As one of the master theoreticians in culture studies, Clifford Geertz, used to define man as a meaning making animal, and the meaning which he weaves around himself or herself. So this understanding of weaving is very interesting with regard to the text and reading. And the word reading that I was mentioning in the first line, it has its origin in the Latin word legere. And the legere, it is not just a kind of reading aloud, but it is a kind of understanding that indicates that by reading, reading it is to choose and to gather. Now, if you see this particular word of reading, legere, you will find that many of our basic vocabularies related to our intellectual development, both in its materialities, in its substrates, are linked with the idea of reading. For example, lecture. Lecture is a kind of public speaking, is a kind of public speaking, speaking aloud. And once in medieval Europe, and also early medieval Europe, there was a practice, of, particularly in Rome, of public reading. In our country, you must have heard or seen the Kathak, who used to read from a text. So this idea of lecture had its origin in the same root, legere, and the podium in which we used to speak in a seminar or during our lecture is called lecture. Lecture is that materiality, is the substrate related to the reading. Again, coming to the word intelligent, you all will also have this root uh, added, added as a root word. Now coming to the word legend, that is also related in some way. So reading has a primacy in the intellectual development of humanity. Then what is reading? So far, if you have any question, you may ask me. And while I shall be, you can see that during the lecture I get interrupted many a time, and I am in a practice of being such interrupted because of the different kinds of things which come showering in. So you may ask any question or any suggestion in the beginning. You can make. So no point. I shall be stopping for some time. May ask you question, or if you have any question or comments or suggestion, you may ask or say. So don't hesitate to do that. So what is reading? Reading, as you see in the slide, is the ability to make sense of written or printed symbol. Initially, it was the visual symbol, visual information, which I was talking about, the regimes of development of reading, particularly with regard to the visual orality tradition, speech tradition, speech regime. And from there, we come to another phase in the reading, which is the reading of continuous text, fluent reading, that is in tablet in early Mesopotamia, in scroll in Greece and Egypt, and also in our country, though in our country it was Puthi, and the Puthi culture was not prevalent everywhere. In the Europe and Middle East, scroll was more prevalent in the ancient time, and then, but whatever the case may be, all these contributed to the ability of reading continuously. And then the extracting of informations in the present age, information age, in the through e-book or e-text, in the on the electronic screen, and that is the latest kind of development in the practice of reading. And as I was suggesting, the visual information which was encoded in the speech regime, it was the decoding of the graphics or mnemonics. That was the earliest forms of reading. And for the last 3 millennium, there were the spoken words, uh, and the spoken words, and then which is supplemented by a kind of script that bore the immortal witness to last for the centuries. And this is still prevalent among various tribal communities and indigenous peoples. For example, the ancient Polynesians, what they did, they used to read certain notches and symbols while they chant prayers for their ancestors. And similar reading of notches was noticed among the Neanderthal people, one of the ancestral population to present day Homo sapiens sapiens. Those people, those ancestral Neanderthals, also used to decipher the meaning of notches, and you still find some examples of these among the ancient Polynesians. And among the Santals, we come across Salgira or Sajjam Sakam. We know that during the Santal rebellion, the people used to communicate it with each other through a twig of sal plant. So this kind of communication, even in the marriage ceremony, they used to send the knotted what I should say, threads, knotted threads to the neighbors in invitation for their marriage. And these knots indicates the dates of marriage, how to calculate the dates of marriage. And the quipu of the in the Latin America, Mexico, that is also another example of such kind of inscribing some code in a text. But all these reading or texts were examples of mediated reading or incomplete reading, because these were based on predetermined codes. These were based on predetermined codes, incomplete reading. But complete reading or the fluent reading, that came later, and it originated this complete reading at a stage, reading continuously, originated in Mesopotamia, followed by Egypt and Indus Valley. And this origin is dated around 6,000 to 5,700 years back, the present, in Mesopotamia. And we know that they had the cuneiform script on which they used to write with stylus. Stylus is the photographs of pictures of stylus shown in the slide. You can see, and these were used for writing on clay tablets, and also these similar kind of things were used for writing on the palm leaf or on the Bhurjapatra bark that was prevalent in Southeast Asia, including India. So this stylus and this manuscript writing is an old art, and people still, in very limited section of people in some parts of the country, still practice, still know the art of writing these with this stylus. In Howrah near Kolkata, there a few decades back, people used to write with that stylus, and on palm on the script manuscript puthi printing was there. So this particular invention with regard to the writing and also reading is interesting phenomenon of human history. But the early reading meant many things. For example, the earliest people to read and to develop reading, the Sumerians used the word Sita for reading, and this mean many things. Not only reading aloud, but to count, calculate, memorize, consider, and also recite. So reading was a kind of wholesome activity, but but still it was a class phenomenon. It was a class phenomenon, and a data of 2000 BCE, Ur, the ancient city of Ur in the Middle East, in Iraq, of 12,000 people, of its population was 12,000 by then, only 120 could read and write. So reading was also related to class in its very beginning, and this was also the fact in our country as well. We know the Varna Vyavastha, the Varna system also reflects this class kind of thing in reading and mastering over the text. Initially, there were some spiritual or some supernatural connections with the reading and writing. People used to think that the writing and reading had magical power. In the ancient city of Nippur, the clay bowls which were sold with the script written on them, and they thought that if they use this bowl, they can contain the evil spirits within it. Those who are from northeastern states, particularly in the tradition of Buddhism, there are flags on which the sacred scripts are written. It is thought that the air passing through these flags and touching upon these scripts will ward off the evil spirits, the evils. So This reading has a magical connections. So apart from its practical utility, is emotional and also psychological importance. This magical importance root of reading is also factors uh, 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 related to reading is also important, and these but it has, as I have already said, some practical dimensions of economic, political, social dimensions. In economic dimensions, it is related to the book trade. In political dimension, it is with the negotiation between knowledge and power, and in the social dimension, it is related to the uh, class and class phenomenon. And in the economics of book, the book trade started in Athens around 5th century BCE, but private reading also gradually became popular since that time, and also the later public reading, because all could not read, so there are only few people, uh, and it was related to the concept of chaining the knowledge, guarding the knowledge. And in the slide, you can see how the Holy Bibles was was kept chained in the library, or how the libraries look like, the with the books with it under jived with chains. So the chained books and library as having those books was a phenomenon in medieval Europe. So knowledge was the rights for only a few people. A section of people can only have had access to the knowledge in books and reading. But you know it's very well that with Gutenberg's uh, invention of printing press, the knowledge was freed from the clutches of a few, and it was made a public uh, thing. The public reading gradually became popular, but still, reading was not a easy phenomenon, because the book, the size of book, the arrangement for reading, everything was related to the history and the social, political, and economic conditions of the people. Because the books were large in the huge in in size before the printing press, and only a few people could afford to buy books or get access to the books, because the materials on which these were written were not easily available. Again, if you have enough time to master over the script or have to time to reading, then you can only have you have to be, you have to be affluent. It was so that to keep a curve on limit on the reading in medieval Europe, there was window tax, because the people used to uh, keep windows in their house, and by the side of the window they can read. But those who were planning to have this facility had to pay for these uh, activity of reading. So reading was not that easy thing for certain time. And as we are saying, if you like to read in the evening or after the sundown, then you need to have enough light for that. So there was an economy, a class, the affordability for the reading. And all these three pictures, you can see how the reading by the window, and what was the arrangement for the reading room with chain books. But now the thing has changed. You can now read, take a book at hand, codex type of book. You can take in your hand and read. wherever you can drive, wherever you would go, you can do it with that. So changing style of reading is an important understanding with regard to reading, that I should say. Is it all right? I'm audible and making meaning what I say. Am I audible? I cannot
Yes,
hear.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so fine. Now coming to critical reading. So critical reading, whenever we talk about critical, people become much skeptical, frowning. But critical reading is different from criticism. It's not the criticism, it is act of not just reading a text, but asking questions about it. The implications for the claims it makes, considering examples of such claims, and overall trying to come to a central point, an interpretation of the content. So critical reading, apart from the reading of text in a simple way, is a creative exercise. Is a creative exercise, because by reading you are trying to make meaning of it, and there are two major factors which influence this critical judgment. One is the interpretation, and the second is self-thinking. And while doing this exercise, you will have to check how the authors are honest about their claims and what they are presenting, how the authors are logical, whether the things they are developing are developed through a kind of reasoning. It may be deductive reasoning, it may be inductive reasoning. The deductive reasoning will follow from the first sentence, from first premise to the second premise. Then that will follow to the third or the third sentence. So each sentence you have to be careful while reading and while writing by yourself, that whether you are writing what you believe to be true, you are confident about it, and if you are not confident, you may express it that this much definition, this much data I have, or this much I can claim. That should be written, and this is the honesty of a writing. Then, and you must see these features in the text which you are reading. Then comes the question of logic, and this logic must be seen in the way it is presented. In the way it is presented. Say, for example, I have a book at my hand. I can take any of the pages from this book and write that, and may start reading. Rightly, I have in my desk one book, The Nation Building in Anthropology Beyond the Colonial Encounter, by Professor Guha, Abhijit Guha. He has written the book, and in this book, the chapter 1, this is the introductory chapter. Here it is written that the history of Indian anthropology as depicted by the founders. This is the title of the chapter. Now you see how he is placing his sentences. The first sentence is that anthropology in India began under colonial rule. Next, the European scholars and British administrators contributed to the establishment of anthropology in India. So you can see how the colonial rule and the European scholar and British administrators are linked by the second sentence. Now come to the third sentence. The first anthropological publication started with the Asiatic Society, which was established on 15 January 1784 in Kolkata by Sir William Jones, a philologist. So these three sentences are one after another linking the process of development of anthropology in India, history of anthropology in India. And if we did not find, or if there was no logical connections between the sentences, then this would come very awkward. Say, for example, if after reading the sentence, anthropology in India began under colonial rule, and then I read one sentence after one or two pages and take a sentence like, which we would of course wait for the result of research of the aforesaid mega project. So it would not make any meaning. So this kind way you have to see that it should be logical. I think you follow that, but still we must be careful about this. And the third thing is that author, whether what author is presenting is impartial in a sense. This impartiality is not that the author is not taking any stance. There is no rightful claim in being objective, in being in a presentation, particularly in social sciences. There may be subjectivity, there may be some biases, quote unquote, but this impartiality is related to the way you are presenting the theme. If you have some subjective position, that must be clear in your stand. So this kind of impartiality is expected in a structure, and the kind of new information, whether the particular text is supplying you with any new information. So these basic considerations you will take up while approaching a critical reading. Then what should be the elements of critical reading? That the author would try to work out certain things. And you, as a reader, as a critical reader, first of all, start by looking at what authors are aiming to achieve. What is author's objective? So it is always advisable to start from cover and to read till the cover. So you start with the preface, acknowledgement, introduction. So these tidbits of a particular text should be taken into consideration. Otherwise, the objective of the authors would remain elusive. Then to find out what is the structure of argument. What is the structure of argument? How he is, or one is arguing. Is it a deductive argument or inductive kind of reasoning that he is following, or using both? how he is doing. He is starting with the findings in the beginning, and then gradually going down with explanations how he came to that particular conclusion, or he starts from the very beginning and gradually leading towards a particular argument, leading towards a particular conclusion. So this structure of argument is very important part of your reading. Initially, you may not find out, but as you will proceed with notes, then you can find a kind of argument. Initially, the content page and the introduction will give you an idea of the structure of argument, because in many of the books, authors give what and how he has presented in his in their books. So this introduction and the content will give you some idea on the structure of the argument. And then try to find out the main claims. What are the main claims the authors have made? For example, I was talking about the book. I also made a review of that book in Man in India journal, and there I was in the very first chapter. On the basis of my critical reading of the book, I am writing that the role of anthropology, the very first paragraph of the review after reading of the book, just to illustrate how these elements of critical reading are reflected in a review. The role of anthropology in the nation building in India has largely remained beyond the academic attention in this country. In his book, Nation Building in Indian Anthropology Beyond the Colonial Encounter, Professor Abhijit Guha intended to fill that gap. So what the authors are aiming to achieve is important. This is the intention of the author. Guha attempted to see how the Indian anthropologists took up the challenges like famine, resettlement of refugees, development cost, displacement, which independent India faced at its nascent stage. So, what he is trying to achieve and how he will be arranging the discussion. These are the basic things which he will bring in the discussion. Moreover, Guha tried to take an account of the anthropological methods employed by the scholars to study the above-mentioned issues and came up with some concrete results useful for the nation. His approach, as claimed by him, you see the elements of claim. His approach, as claimed by him, is different from that of Talal Asad, who would like to find the influence of colonialism on anthropology. Contrary to this, Guha wanted to analyze how anthropologists shackled under colonial rule devised their own ways to address the burning problems of a developing country immediately after gaining the political freedom. So here I have mentioned how the authors have staked his claim. So this is an important aspect of a critical reading to try to identify the claims made by the author. Is it clear so far whatever I have said? Hello.
Yes, sir. It is clear, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, to adopt a skeptical stance towards the author's claims, that checking what they are supported, uh, what they are claiming are supported by actual evidences. That I have also tried to do while doing the critical reading of this text. And next, what are the backing of any generalizations made? If we came to some generalization, so what are the backing? I have discussed here the text he has used, the references he has cited, and the authors and the lacunae in the references cited, whether there are some mistakes in giving these information. For example, I have mentioned one such uh, lacunae, through being skeptical of the information he has presented. The book has no doubt a significant contribution to our understanding of the history of anthropology in India. Only some minor contradictions appear disquieting. You see, now I come to the critical, the skeptical position, and checking whether the evidences are appropriate. Whether the evidences are appropriate. Only some minor contradictions appear disquieting. For example, both Panchanur Mitra and S.C. Mitra, with page number in the brackets, have been mentioned as the first professor of anthropology in India. But to the best of my knowledge, both did not hold the designation of professor and first. Then the data which is missing in author's description, I have supplied, and I mentioned that the syndicate report 1920 of the University of Calcutta would make it amply clear. My own reference, the anthropological, so that it was there, this in particular information was lacking, and you can have this information from. হ্যালো, হ্যাঁ এসো সাহেব, আমি একটা মেতে আছি, ক্লাসে আছি। হ্যাঁ, আমি আপনাকে, না এখন কথা তো পারছি না বলতে, আমি অন্তত পরে কথা বলি, ঘন্টাখানেক বাদে। হ্যাঁ, ক্লাস থেকে আছি। So, and next is the check how the authors define the key terms and are consistent in using them. I have put a question over here that though you have mentioned all these discussion, everything, but what is the idea of nation building? This is one of the key terms in the book on nation building in Indian anthropology. So it is to see whether similar key terms which are being used by the author through certain operational definitions, one may use these key terms throughout the books, and whether these are properly, consistently used in the text. And then consider what are the underlying values that the values guiding the authors and influencing their claims. So this way, you can see the philosophical understanding behind a study from which point of view an author is placing his argument. And these are very pertinent question to a critical reading. And at the same time, it is to be seen whether in this text author is flexible to certain extent with regard to his position and the methodology that he or she has adopted. So all these are to be kept in mind while doing a critical reading. Next, come to literature review. What is literature review? There are several definitions I have presented here. But before doing this, I would like to add something, things which are not usually uh, discussed or mentioned while doing a critical reading or particularly review, because book review or something such kind of standalone review also considers the text product as well. Not only what is written there, but how this is written, how the text is presented, how the book looks like. So there are certain other aspects to this critical reading and also concomitant literature review or book review. I think these aspects which I would like to share with you should be taken into consideration. And let's start from the cover of a book. You must be, or you should be, careful, sensitive to the cover design of a book, how the book cover looks like. Because the first thing in a bookshop or in a library or on the table, you will see the cover, the face of the book. And those who are associated with, hello, আমি একটু ক্লাসে আছি অনলাইন, হ্যাঁ, নটার পরে ফোন, নটার পরে কাগজপত্র নিয়ে বসে, হ্যাঁ, যা প্রোগ্রেস হয়েছে একদম সেটা নিয়ে বসে নটা নাগাদ খাতা কলম নিয়ে বসবে, ঠিক আছে? Sorry, time and again I am interrupted. I'm always apologistic before you for being so interrupted, because I am talking so unimpressively and at the same time kind of okay. So for example, the book I was talking about has a cover which is slight yellowish and on which black and white photographs of 4 Indian anthropologists are printed on this cover. It is consciously done. Since the bygone days, the colonial period, which was in the back of mind. In this context, if a photograph of a computer or something of an abstract thing could have been given, that would be a a topic of a different interpretation. But this is also important to look at the author. Then coming to the text, whether it is properly printed without spelling mistakes, with appropriate spacing, with appropriate fonts, whether there is consistency on presenting the section and subsection of the text, whether the indents are perfect, to check the references and the style of references, whether this is consistent or following a particular style, giving all the necessary information. This is very important. And if you have an eye for a text matter, you can easily identify whether the appropriate font is chosen, whether the X height of the particular font or typecase is considered, whether the kerning is done properly, that is the spacing in between words. So all these considerations are important for the book. And I have also identified, while I also would like to identify this kind of uh, rather I should say the lacunae in the book, because book is after all a kind of physical product that gives you a tangible experience. So that must be properly presented. So this can be a part of your understanding, if you like to say. Now coming to the literature review. Literature review we do in different ways. First of all, we make some introductory literature review which form our dissertation, and after a general introduction to the topic, we add a literature review. That means the works done on that particular topic. What are the previous works which are done on that issue or the topic under discussion? And then come to the objectives, or come to a section which we call research gap on the basis of literature review. So literature review is of prime importance for several reasons. One is that it will identify, it will help you to locate the research gap, the lacunae in earlier research, the gap in earlier research on the basis of which you can do your research. So this is a very important undertaking in a research. Secondly, it will give you the idea on the kind of quality of an amount of information which are available on a particular topic. Because the research in a single word or a kind of studies in a single word is some knowledge addition. So to become aware of the knowledge available, there is no second way but literature review of literature. So while you are aiming to add knowledge, you ought to be careful. You ought to go through uh, an exercise called literature review. Thirdly, with regard to the theoretical understanding of it, what are the theories you are trying to deal with? So a literature review will also enlighten you about the theoretical development in a particular field. And also, this is true for the methodology. So literature review informs you in several ways. One is the kind of work, quality of work and information, methodological and theoretical aspect of your study. And in literature review, and by literature review, you finally come to the objectives which you set for your work, or you finally come to decide on the particular topic you are going to take up for your research. Now, this kind of literature review that you usually put in the introductory chapter, but this may be a part of your other chapters. This may be a part of the entire work. So in a thesis or a dissertation, we can have literature review in different ways. One is in the introduction as a separate standalone literature review. And then we may have systematic literature review spreading over the chapters. And also, while doing your discussion analysis, these literature review may be placed in the appropriate sections. So literature review, presentation of literature review may take different forms, different shapes and ways. Secondly, the literature review can be a single piece of exercise. For example, book review or review article. So this is another way the literature review exists. For the project proposals, say for example, UGC or ICSSR, they have dedicated section through which they ask for literature review of literature at the national and international level. What kinds of work have been done at the national and international. So literature review needs to be taken seriously and to be done quite meticulously. And it should be, there are different definitions, as I was telling you. It should be succinct, give a picture of the state of knowledge and major question in your topic area. Typically, the literature review forms an important chapter in the thesis. Where its purpose is to provide the background and justification for the research undertaken. The purpose of the literature review is to locate the research project, to form its contexts and background, and to provide insights into previous works. That which I have already stated are parts of these different definitions. It demonstrates a fully professional grasp of the background of the theory to the subject. It extracts and synthesizes the main points, issues and findings and research methods which emerge from a critical review of the readings and the nature of arguments. So these are the different definitions and which give you a clear idea of literature. And this literature review is also linked to the critical reading. By critical reading, you are doing literature review with the target of the analytical synthesis of all known literature on the problem, including that in other languages, high level of conceptual thinking within and across theories. So whatever presented in the text and how you are giving your input, understanding, a summative and formative evaluation of previous works on the problem, depth and breadth of the discussion on the relevant philosophical traditions and the ways in which they relate to the problem. So these are basically the targets of the literature review. And what purposes it serves. It provides a historical background for your research. For example, when you are doing a literature review on a particular topic, first of all, you will try to find what are the first or pioneering works in the particular domain. And what was the subject matter or discussions in those early or pioneering or first studies. So the historical background of the research you are going to take up will be contextualized. Then it comes to give the overview of the current context in which the research is situated. That once upon a time it was being done this way. The earliest studies talk about the things in that way, but now these and these theories are prevalent in the research. And the contemporary debates which are related to the study are like the following. So then you come to the present. Next, the purpose is to include a discussion of the theories and concepts which are related to the particular research. Next, the terminological things. What are the basic terms which are used by scholars in the particular domain previously? And how are you using these in your own study? You can indicate that in the literature. Then come to the related research in the field. What are the major trends? To which particular trend or trends your research aligns? How your research is extending the existing knowledge or interrogating them, challenging them, or trying to fill a gap in the existing knowledge. So this way you can place your review of literature. And the review of literature will also provide the supporting evidence for a practical problem or issue which the research is addressing, and thereby it will underscore its significance. It will give the meaning, the significance of the work under discussion. Usually what we do a literature review thematically. So for example, if we are to review 50 books for the purpose of a study, we start with the categorization of these books into under different themes, and under a particular themes the works which are relevant are mentioned. So the literature review can be thematic. This is one type of literature review. Another may be chronological, temporal kind of categorization. So in the 50s or early 50s or during colonial or pre-independence period, these are the nature of study. And after that, it evolved into this. So you can also classify the review in these sections. You can also classify make the literature review on the basis of the particular topic you are searching, and focusing more on that, only giving a passing reference to. This is a focused kind of literature review. So there may be different sorts of literature review which can be shown through a diagram. That is reading, and the reading will help you to develop categories and themes for reading. And in the text, you will try to identify theories, terminology, concepts, policy, and methodology. You will then pass on to exploring ideas around the topic. You will search to locate the previous research, and formulate your own questions out of this review. Start jottings, note taking informally. Then you will arrange these notes and come to develop your own argument, pinpointing the problem which you would like to investigate. And after doing this preliminary draft exercise, you will finalize your write-up or the literature review. So this is the basic things which you have to do. But in a research work or PhD kind of study, there are hundreds of books you have to go through. And for each case, if you are to follow up the paths or the ways or the steps which I have outlined, it will take huge not only effort but pages, and that is not advisable, that is not possible. So to be succinct and to be precise, what we do, we do understand thematic categories in which, while referring to a previous work, we basically mention 2-3 things. What this book is about, what the topic the book is dealing with, how it has been dealt with, and what are the salient findings. These 3 points are usually identified and taken up for the lengthy review work or for reviews of hundreds of books for the purpose of research. So these 3 points are very important. Otherwise, while doing a critical review, for your own understanding and for the entire study which you will be doing, the way is raising question, putting question, and reading thoroughly, close reading, taking notes, which will help in developing your entire work. And for writing the literature review, this brief outline of making this happen would be helpful for your purpose. So these are what I had to say. And if you have any question, you please ask me of, or if you have any comments, you are free to do that. I have nothing more to say.